Dan, 24 individuals, sanctions, 14 companies. It's different to what we've seen before. Talk to me about why these sanctions are so much more serious than the sanctions from the previous administration.
Thanks, John. I mean, these sanctions are significant for the primary reason of these are true friends of Putin as well as global businessmen. Their holdings around the world are diverse. These are not just individuals and entities domiciled in Russia. These are global companies that are impacted by this, as well as global companies to a certain extent that had Americans' involvement from a deals and management standpoint as well.
So, Dan, I'm trying to understand what these sanctions are. And when you speak to companies, ultimately what they mean. They mean you can't deal directly with these other companies if you're a U.S. institution or a U.S. individual. But what are the secondary sanctions, so to speak? What do they mean?
Yeah, so the direct sanctions, you're right. These are freezing of assets located in the United States, as well as the prohibition of U.S. entities and persons around the world from doing business with these entities. The secondary sanctions, and actually the Treasury Department was in the UK this week and essentially began warning British financial institutions in terms of further dealings with these designated entities from last Friday. What it essentially does through what are called secondary sanctions is it forces a decision point. Either do business with the designated entity, the target, or do business with the United States. Choose. And this is very much out of the playbook that the United States government used during the ramp up to furthering the Iran sanctions over the years that ultimately brought Iran to the negotiating table and the Iran deal enacted. So,
Dan, how are corporates responding to this? Because market participants responding to it quite clearly, and maybe somewhat easier. You just get out, you sell and ask questions later. For corporates with complex supply chains who rely on some of these companies and don't know whether they can or can't interact with them, what are the movements that you're seeing?
There's a lot of exiting that's happening or preparing to exit. In the financial space, you see a large European clearing and settlement mechanism that's essentially banning transactions with these designated entities, which under the law they don't necessarily have to do. Similarly, you're seeing a number of financial institutions and other industrial companies begin to evaluate their dealings with these entities for fear of U.S. retaliation going forward. So these are significant actions, and what the U.S. has yet to pull out, at least formally, are secondary sanctions that would essentially destroy a lot of these companies in Russia.